Okay, let's dive into a story that starts with just a single house in Lewiston, Idaho. But what it uncovers is a system that critics are calling an industrial scale equity extraction machine. A system that, they allege, isn't just about collecting on a debt, but about systematically stripping the wealth right out from under homeowners. And that quote right there from fraud investigator Eleanor Richards really just hits the nail on the head. We're not just talking about a simple missed mortgage payment here. We're talking about an entire apparatus allegedly designed to move wealth from regular people to powerful investors, all while using the law as a shield. So, it all kicks off with a man named Jeremy Bass and his home in Idaho. On the surface, it looks like just another routine foreclosure. But as we're about to see, underneath that surface, a really tangled web of powerful corporate players was already hard at work. Look, this was never really a fair fight. You've got Jeremy Bass on one side, and on the other, a whole network of corporations. The loan servicer, the trustee, the law firm, and the venture capital firms that bought the property. And these guys aren't strangers to each other. They're all deeply connected through industry groups. It makes them look less like individual companies and more like, cogs in the very same machine. So, staring down this massive corporate machine, Jeremy Bass did something incredible. He refused to just give up. And with pretty much no other options on the table, he was forced to take on this entire fight all by himself. There's actually a specific legal term for this situation, and it's perforce pro se. This is really important. This isn't about someone choosing to be their own lawyer. It means being forced into it out of pure absolute necessity. And that little distinction is just crucial for understanding everything that happened next. And believe me, Bass tried to get help. He really did. His records show he called over 125 law firms over 2 years. But time and time again, he was turned away. Why? Often because of conflicts of interest inside this really tight-knit foreclosure industry. He literally had no other choice but to become his own lawyer. So as Bass starts digging in, he makes some absolutely shocking allegations against his loan servicer, Carrington Mortgage. He claimed that in 2021, they sent him loan documents that were backdated by 9 years. He alleged they offered him $100, basically a bribe, to sign papers he believed were fraudulent. He also claimed they totally botched his pandemic forbearance and, this is the kicker, created a second deed of trust on his property without him even knowing, which basically doubled his debt overnight. But the case went way beyond just the servicer's actions. Bass's most explosive argument was that the public auction, the final step in the whole foreclosure process, was a total and complete sham, that it was rigged right from the very beginning. And this really gets to the core question of this whole case, right? Was this auction a legitimate, open, competitive sale where the highest bidder wins, or was the winner already decided before anyone even showed up? And here it is. This is Bass's smoking gun. The people who bought the house, they showed up to the auction with cashier's checks already printed. And we're not talking about a check for a round number. We're talking about checks made out for the exact final sale price, down to the very last cent. And that's the whole problem, isn't it? As one auction fraud investigator put it, that kind of precision is basically impossible in a real competitive auction. It is a massive red flag that screams prior coordination. It's proof that the bidders knew the winning number before the auction even started. Now, you're not going to believe this, but the buyers basically admitted it. In their own sworn statement to the court, they said that their office called the trustee before the auction to ask for the lender's opening bid. And only after they got this inside information did they go and get their cashier's checks printed. Legally speaking, that admission is just devastating. It completely blows up their claim to be what's called bona fide purchasers. Now, that's a special legal status that protects buyers who act in good faith, who have no idea there are any problems with the sale. But under Idaho law, if you have that kind of inside info, you just can't be a bona fide purchaser, period. So, let's head to the courtroom. Because you'd think with that kind of evidence, this would be a slam dunk, right? Well, this is where Bass ran headfirst into what legal experts call a procedural maze, one that seems almost designed to trap people who don't have a lawyer. So a civil procedure specialist named Marcus Bennett explains that there's this kind of loophole in Idaho's court rules. It's called a reply void. And it basically means when a team of corporate lawyers drops new evidence in their very last legal brief, there's no official way for the other person, especially someone representing themselves, to respond to it. And here is exactly how that trap was sprung. The buyers file for judgment. Bass files his response, with all his evidence about the auction being rigged. Then, in their final reply, the buyers submit a new declaration, the one with their admission about calling beforehand. When Bass scrambled to respond to that bombshell, the court just refused to even look at it. This timeline just shows you how incredibly fast and brutal this was. The buyer's admission comes in on October 20th. Bass works overnight to file his response the very next day, but at the hearing on the 22nd, the judge just throws it out, saying there is no provision for there to be a reply to a reply. And just like that, on a technicality, Bass's most important argument was silenced before he could even make it. So, okay, this is about more than just one guy's fate for his house in Idaho. When you zoom out, this one single case starts to raise some really disturbing questions about fairness in our entire legal and financial system. First off, it is a perfect example of what people are now calling equity stripping foreclosures. Now, this isn't like the 2008 crisis, where lots of people were underwater on their mortgages. This is a new trend that targets homes with a lot of equity. The goal isn't just to get the loan paid back. The goal is to snatch up all that wealth the homeowner has built up over the years for pennies on the dollar. And this brings us to the really big questions, right? What does access to justice even mean if systemic conflicts of interest make it impossible for a regular person to even find a lawyer? Should following a technical rule ever be more important than looking at credible evidence of fraud? And really, how can any of us trust a system of property sales if a rigged game is just allowed to stand? Ultimately, Jeremy Bass's fight for his home makes us all confront a final, really provocative question that goes so much further than Idaho. It's a question about what justice really means in a system where the process itself can become the punishment. And it leaves you wondering, when the rules of the game seem to block a fair outcome, maybe it's time to change the rules.